Yeah.
Okay, everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the Create You Professional Development webinar series. My name is Ashley Fobb and I'm the Director of Communications and Development for the Arts Council. Just a few things we wanted to make sure that you are aware of. We are currently taking registration for the Louisiana Art Summit. It's going to be taking place July 15th and 16th. So be sure to go to artsvr.org to register. And you also get complimentary membership if you're a member of the Arts Council. So make sure you become a member and support the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. I now want to turn the webinar over to Monica Pearce. She is the Arts Council's Director of Grants Management and Special Events. Make sure you click the chat button at the bottom for any questions that you have. Monica, after her presentation, will take questions and we'll have a question and answer session. So without further ado, I turn it over to Monica Pearce.
Thank you, Ashley, and hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. So my name is Monica Pearce. Some of you may know me from the Project Assistance Grant workshop. I'm at it again, part 2 with DAC. So today I'm going to talk about the Decentralized Arts Funding grants, which has the upcoming deadline of July 12th. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Prince Edward Island in Canada, and I moved here from Toronto last year. My work has mainly been in arts administration in music, and I'm also a composer of classical music and opera. And so the granting systems in Canada are a little different than the US, but I'm really excited to be working at the Arts Council and administering our regranting programs like the DAC Grant. So, let's see here. Okay, great. So the purpose of today's workshop is I'm going to go over the details of the Decentralized Arts Funding grant. Then I'll give you a walk through the online application process, which is through mygovernmentonline. And for those of you who applied last year, this is very, very similar. So that will just be a refresher. But for those of you who are applying for the first time, this will be very, very, very useful because it's a little finicky in the online application. And so after that, I'll go into some grant writing tips, and then we'll go into some questions and discussion. Okay, so just generally, in case you're new to the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge, we administer 3 main regranting programs. The first grant that we administer is the Local Project Assistance Grant, which is funded through the East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor President Metro Council. And it's for projects that happen in East Baton Rouge Parish. The second grant we administer is the Charles Lamar Family Foundation's Shaw Center Subsidy Grant, which is to help organizations rent the Shaw Center and its spaces for arts events by providing subsidy support. So basically that grant helps to cover up to half the venue cost at the Shaw Center spaces. And the third main grant that we administer is the DAC Grant, the Decentralized Arts Funding Grant, which is funding through the state of Louisiana for arts programming throughout Region 2, this is our region, which covers the 11 parish region that we serve. A little bit about DAC in general. The DAC Grant was initiated in 1995 to provide a system to fund arts in every parish of the state. The state gives the funds to the local arts councils to administer the funds to their regions, and the funds are provided to each parish on a per capita basis. So we are Region 2 of the Regional Development Agency, and we serve the following parishes: Ascension, East and West Baton Rouge, East and West Feliciana, Iberville, Livingston, Point Capee, St. Helena, Tangipahoa, and Washington. Hopefully I pronounced those correctly. They're a little bit different. Still new to this region. And so also there are, in the guidelines, which you can find on our website, you can look at the funding amounts per parish as well. And it's also listed on our website in the DAC section. So the main goals of the program, I won't go into all of these, but the main goals are to strengthen arts organizations, strengthen the arts community, to encourage arts activities across multiple disciplines, to leverage local support for the art, fund public art, and introduce standard grant writing practices to the community, among other things. Okay, we have this handy infographic, which was put together by Kelsey McCrary at Louisiana Division of the Arts, and it's a real beauty. So I'll just go through a little bit of this. This kind of walks you through a way to determine a timeline, kind of work plan for attacking this grant. So the first sort of question is, do you have an idea for a project? And then if yes, then you follow to, are you eligible? So are you one of these types of organizations? And we'll go into that in a little bit as well, but basically it's a 501c3 organization. 3 is DAC grant. Is the DAC grant a good fit for the project? As in, does the mission of the grant kind of align with the mission of the project? If all good here, then you actually plan out the project and get familiar with the instructions and guidelines. And don't worry if you, these will be available after the fact as well. Then when you're going through and planning it out, make sure you're specific when you plan out your project. Make sure you answer the fundamental questions. What are you proposing to do? The who, what, where, why questions about your project. And then outline the evaluation process, as in how will you know that you achieved your goals. Prepare your budget, and finally proofread your grant and submit. So who can apply? Who can apply for DAC? Louisiana 501c3 nonprofit organizations can apply. Local, parish, or state governmental agencies can apply. Colleges and universities, public or private schools, and school boards. And as long as the project is operating in one of the following artistic disciplines: dance, design, folk life, literature, music, media, theater, visual arts and crafts, and multidisciplinary. Who cannot apply? Unfortunately, individual artists cannot apply. So that is one thing that the DAC grant, there's a restriction on that. Also, other people who might not be able to apply, that would be past grant recipients who are not in compliance. Hopefully that's not you. Organizations already receiving funds from the state. Organizations receiving funds in parallel categories from the Louisiana Division for the Arts. So that would be if there's an organization that receives general operating support from Louisiana Division for the Arts, then you would not be eligible for DAF. Okay, so there are two main application categories for DAF. There is project assistance and organizational support. So the project assistance funds a specific art project, such as, you know, a performance, an exhibition, any kind of arts-based project. Any nonprofit organization, governmental agency may apply, and the organization can only submit one application. So that's for an arts project, but doesn't necessarily have to be an arts-based organization. Organizational support, on the other hand, is specifically for arts organizations with 501c3 status. And the kind of funds that are available for that also can cover, the grants can cover operating and overhead expenses such as salaries, rent, insurance, etc. And for the purposes of the DAC program, an arts organization is an organization whose mission statement makes it clear that their primary purpose is to develop, promote, encourage, and or present the arts to the public. I will mention here as well that applying for PAG, say Project Assistance Grant, or Lamar Grant, the other regranting systems that we offer here doesn't make you ineligible to apply for DAC. So you can hold all three at one time. And this is just to note, this is just a little visual to show that for project assistance, you can be any of these types of organizations, 501c3, nonprofit, agency, school board, etc. But for organizational support, it has to be a 501c3 arts organization. Okay, so for project assistance grants, some examples, I mean, the sky is the limit, but basically presentation of arts exhibitions or performances, you know, festivals, creations of new works, school residencies for guest artists, projects that encourage the development of emerging professional artists. So basically any kind of arts-based project that has a high impact would be eligible. Some things that the project assistance grants do not fund: operating costs, non-artistic costs, non-arts oriented exhibitions. So basically, just to say that the costs that are associated with the project are eligible, but ones that are sort of on the fringe of that usually are not. But if you're not sure, all of that is very clearly outlined in the guidelines as well. So if you're making up your budget, that is a good time to look and just double check that all of the expenses that you'd be putting in are eligible. Okay, so the evaluation criteria, I'm going to go into both the project assistance and organizational support, and they're pretty similar. There's a lot of overlap, but basically the grants are reviewed by a community panel, and they're reviewed based on the following criteria. For project assistance grants, it's 35% quality and artistic merit. So that would be the merit, the expertise of the artists involved, the contribution to the art form and field. The need and impact is at 30%, so also pretty high. So that would be the need for the project, the access, participation, and exposure to the arts, level of community collaboration and involvement. So it's basically asking, how is this going to impact the community that you're trying to serve? And planning and design is at 20%. So that would be, you know, adequate people and resources specified, clear objectives, realistic timeline and time frame, an effective plan for implementation and evaluation. And then finally, the administration and budget is 15%, which is realistic budget. You look at the expertise of the project director, organizational capacity, fiscal responsibility, and compliance with previous grants. So you'll see for organizational support, it's pretty similar, but just weighted a little bit differently. So the quality is basically the artistic merit, value of the organization's programs and services to the community. So in this case, it looks a little bit more broadly at what the organization does, not just the project itself. The need and impact is again 30%. So the involvement of diverse population perspective of the community, use of grant funds to further the mission of the organization, efforts for increased access, participation, and exposure to the arts. And then administration budget is at 20%. So like I mentioned, the grants are reviewed through a community panel. And so the community panel will evaluate and score your applications based on the criteria that I just outlined. And so it's a 100-point scoring system. So you can see that, you know, it's like 30%, 35%, whatever. So you would give each criteria a mark out of that number, and then the applications would be ranked. The DAF panels are typically open, so that means that the applicants can attend the panels and hear, get an insight into the process, and makes it kind of a transparent process for everyone involved. We typically have 3 panels because we divide the region, since there's 11 parishes, we divide it up and put certain regions together so that they can be grouped together. And yeah, it's a great process. Okay, some application requirements. You'll be able to see the full list of these in the actual kind of guidelines and application process, but I'll just highlight a couple here. So, proof of nonprofit status is an important one. You need to show the 501c3 IRS letter, with the exception of if you're applying for a project and you're a governmental agency or school or library or whatever, then you're exempt from that. But organizational support, absolutely, you need that. Proof of parish domicile, this is something that this is the certificate of incorporation from the Louisiana Secretary of State. And we really need this to show where the funds are going within the different regions. And you should be able to find that on this special website here. Some other requirements, we would show the list of the organization's programming for the current year and the projected year. Also the board of directors, the current list, including their names, addresses, terms of office, etc. You'd show the year-end financial statements, so that would be the copy of your most recently completed audit. And provider of service forms, so that would be for each key person that is in the project or organization, I guess, in the case of the organizational support one. So all the key players who are in that. So it's not like every single person on your staff or anything, but the key people who are involved, you'd need a provider of service form for each. Okay. So one thing I do want to mention that some people do get a bit confused on with DAC is there's a cash match. And so what that means is the DAC requires a 15% cash match. And so that means, for example, if you're asking for a $5,000 grant, then you must have at least $2,500 of other revenue sources. So you need to be able to match half of whatever you're requesting. And those revenues, I believe, can also include in-kind contributions as well. They can be a mix of cash and in-kind. I might want to verify that, but I'm quite sure that you can. But just make sure that when you're putting together your budget that you do make sure that the 50% cash match is included, because that can be an issue in the panel process. And if you're not sure, just give me a call. Okay, so supplemental materials, that would be anything that kind of gives the panel a little bit more insight into what your organization does. So brochures, media clippings, letters of support, recordings, and you can upload those on through the software. Okay, so this timeline is a little bit approximate, but I'd say it's pretty close, which is, well, the first thing is not approximate, which is that the deadline for grants is July 12th at 5 p.m., not midnight, 5 p.m. Write it down. So that's when the applications are all due. That is definite. After that, we're still kind of working out the exact timeline, but it's roughly, so once the applications are received, we review them all for eligibility and we strike the panels. So we'll have the 3 separate panels throughout the region. And we'll also send out a note to all the applicants so that if they are available, that they can come to the panels as well. And then later on, I would say by September, maybe late September, we should be able to be at a process where we know the funded applicants and we're just getting them approved by our board. And then we announce them shortly thereafter. So within September is usually, I think, when this occurs. Last year, I believe I think it might have been August, but the deadline was earlier in June. So, And then the period of funded activity is October 1st to September 30th, 2020. So if you are funded, congrats, that's great. The first thing that you do is you'll get an award letter, and in with it there'll be some paperwork where you need to sign a contract and send in a revised budget if you got an amount that was different than what you requested. And then once we receive that, we cut the first check, which is for 75% of the grant amount. And then the remaining 25% you'll receive upon receive the final report. So it'll be much later. It won't be until the next year, most likely. What else? Yes, so if I have site event visit, the Arts Council really likes to come and see the activities wherever possible. And so please keep us informed of when your programming is taking place so that I can make it out. I haven't been to all the regions yet, but I've been to quite a few. I've been to Tangipahoa, it was great. And there's a lot more that I need to check out. So please put me on your mailing list and let me know when your event is. So then later on, when your project is complete, you submit a final report, and then we will reimburse you for the final check. And just a reminder of the proper acknowledgement for this grant. You need to acknowledge both the Arts Council and Louisiana Division of the Arts with logo acknowledgement, and where applicable, the credit statement below. This is all on our website as well. Okay, so My Government Online, here we go. Okay, so the DAC grant, I'm going to walk you through the online application process. We're going to go pretty quickly through this because you'll be able to check this out later as well. And if you've done it before, then great, you've kind of done this already. I will say it's not the most user-friendly software I've ever used, but it's very powerful and it's what we have. So here we go. So when you go to My Government Online, you go to, if this is your very first time, then you need to create an account. So you go to the top, you go to create an account. Sorry, these are a little blurry. I had to take screenshots of them. So then you fill in all your user account info. And there's a little bit of a twist here, because normally when you do something like this, you would be verifying it by email. But with MGO, My Government Online, you have to verify it by phone. So as soon as you sign up and you put in your number, they call you like pretty much immediately to verify your account. So make sure you have your phone next to you when you create your account, because they call pretty fast. It's like within like a minute or two. Then once you have that, you have an account created, and then you should be able to use your login to log in. So you go to up at the top to log in. Then enter your email address and password. Then you go to more. So this is kind of where it does get a little like, oh, where do I find this? So you go to more and then grant programs for jurisdictions. So just keep that in your mind. And then it'll take you to a field where it says apply online, and you have to fill in a couple of different things, but there's not a ton of options here, so it should be fine. So United States, Louisiana, Office of Cultural Development, I think that's the only option. And then project type, there's a couple of different options, but the one for us is Division of the Arts. Then get started on a new application. Then you use the drop down and choose either, you have the choice between the DAC Organizational Support Fiscal Year 20, so that's the one that's coming up, or the DAC Project Assistance Fiscal 20. So whatever one you're applying for, you click that. Click Next, then put in your business address. Then we have director's contact info. then grant contact info. And if it's the same person, that's fine, just put it in twice. The grant contact is usually the one that we would contact with the results. So whoever you want that to be, just keep that in mind. Okay, so then this will bring you to the application questionnaire, and that is where the bulk of the questions are that you need to answer. So this will take you probably the longest part of the application because this will have the narrative questions about what's your project, how are you marketing it, etc., like that type of thing. And there may be some things in this section that may not apply to you. So for instance, there's a section for a sub-applicant if you were using fiscal agent, which for many of you that probably won't be applicable. And if it is, then give me a call because then I may need to help you a little bit with that. There are also some National Endowment of the Arts questions as well because the state gets funding from NEA for this as well. And if you're not sure what to put, there is a link on those questions so that you can look at what it might be referring to, or if you're really not sure, just do your very best estimation for those questions. One thing you will need to know for this part as well is you need to know about the accessibility of the venues that you're using. Some of you may remember this from last time, but just keep that in your mind. Okay, and so if any point in this process you want to save your application, you can, but it's not that intuitive. So just keep in mind when you're doing your application questionnaire, and even if you don't have it all filled out, you can click next, and then on the next page you can hit save, which is very scary for very scary when I'm going through because it seems like if you hit next, you're gonna lose your information. But I would say I definitely recommend keeping track of your narrative answers in a separate document as well, just in case, because even if all goes well and nothing goes wrong and everything like that, you still can't access this application once you submit it. So maybe they'll change that, I'm not sure, but at the moment, once you hit submit, it's gone. I mean, you can download the PDF before you do it, but once you hit the application, it just goes to us. I don't think you'll have a copy as far as I know. Okay, so then you want to come back to your application. So say you saved it and you've logged out and you're continuing on with your lovely life. And you want to come back to the application. So you go to login, and then there's a part below that says My Applications, and then you can open it back up and continue working. Okay. Oh yeah, we have a nice little highlight here, which is what I just said. You will not have a chance to edit your application once you've submitted the application for review. So just an important note there. Okay, so once you do the application questionnaire, the final section is the files upload section, and that's where you would be putting your budget, your financial statements, stuff like that, all the things that you need to upload. And so what happens is you'll go into, there'll be a list of things where you need to put in like upload file, and it's pretty typical. You just open it up and it'll open up a window from your computer and you can upload it from there. But I do want to note that for ones that have a template, so for instance like the budget document, that is it's a hyperlink, or maybe there's a little icon, it's a little blurry, it's a bit hard to see, but basically where in that files upload part, there's a section that says total project budget. You click on that and then you can work on it and save it and then upload it. Kind of similar to PAG if some of you did that as well. But it will all be in My Government Online. Okay, and then make sure you save all your documents. And then once you're ready to submit your application, it'll bring you to the same kind of field as before where you can either save it or submit it. And once you're ready, you can submit, And you can, to confirm that you've submitted, you can actually go to your first main page and it'll show the part where it says My Applications, it'll show that it's been submitted. So that's My Government Online. If you have questions about that, I only have a few more minutes left of I have some grant writing tips, and then we'll go into some questions. And I'm not an expert in My Government Online, but hopefully I can help if you have any questions about that. So, some grant writing tips to finish us off. Those of you who came to my PAG workshop, I apologize, you've seen these before, but they're just so delightful. I have to share. So first one is contact your program manager. In this case, that would be me. If you're not sure, if you're applying for the first time, especially, and you need some advice, or you're not sure if the project fits the grant or anything like that, your program managers are here to help and here to guide. And do not wait until the deadline to do so. Give yourself adequate time. So grant writing does take a while, and there's a lot of things to put together, not just the writing, but all the little collateral bits that have to do with it. So make sure you build in enough time to be able to do it successfully. Also, so that you can just think about the project and know that it's, that it's the right fit for your organization. Then read the guidelines. This will help you determine if your project is a good fit and how best to propose it. So very, very important. There's a lot that's in the guidelines. They're there for a reason. So determine artistic vision and goals. Think about your artistic vision and what you want to accomplish with the work. Write clearly and directly. Answer all of the questions as directly as possible and to the best of your ability. Outline your action plan, so make sure that you outline the steps that will be taken to ensure the successful completion of your project. And one thing having to do with that is think about the kind of questions that panel might have about your work. So those kind of questions, the things that come up around the table, see if you can preemptively answer those types of questions so that it's already kind of embedded into the grant. Create a realistic budget. So research the real cost of activities, services, materials, fees, and equipment. Because it's your community that's going to be looking at your budget, they probably have a good idea of how much things cost. So they'll be able to tell if things are widely different than sort of the standard. So just try and bring it to as close to reality as possible. Get feedback. Always good to have somebody to proofread your grant. They may notice typos, obviously, but also they may be able to ask questions about the project that you didn't realize were kind of left unsaid. And gather support materials. Do not wait until the last minute. This happens to me sometimes as a composer trying to submit a grant. I'm trying to get recordings from people. So just give yourself enough time to get the support materials that you need, especially if they're video or audio or whatever. Last thing we want is to be uploading, a video to your computer and it's like sucking all the energy or internet out of all of the neighborhood. And then finally, follow instructions and triple check your grant and make sure you check the deadline time. Not just the date, but the time. Sometimes it's different. A couple of years ago, one of the Ontario Arts Council in Canada changed their deadline, which used to be 8 o'clock to 1 p.m. or like 8 p.m. to 1 p.m. And it was a heartbreak year for a lot of people. Just make sure you check the deadline time. It's 5 p.m. July 12th. And yes, here's my contact info. You can find me at mpearce@artsvr.org. I'm always happy to help with any questions that you may have regarding grants. And now, now I am happy to take some questions. Let me see if I have any. And if we don't, then that's also fine. But here is your time to ask any questions. Standing by. So far, I don't think we have any questions. Which is fine. Any questions about My Government Online, about the difference between project assistance and organizational support? If not, then I may wrap us up here early, slightly early. Give it another minute or so. In case somebody's writing like a really long question. Oh. Okay, great. So I think we're going to call it a day. Thanks for listening and tuning in. Hope you found it fascinating, or at least helpful. We'll post the webinar later this week on our webinar page on the website, which is so artsvr.org, and the webinar sits under Create You webinar series. So you can check that out, especially if you want to kind of walk through the My Government Online kind of through line stuff again. But I think that's it. Good luck, and be in touch if you have any questions. Thanks very much.